You want to know how you could tell if somebody don't read their Bible? Ask them what they think about judging and judging others. And I guarantee you they will say something like, oh no, I don't think we're supposed to judge anybody. That's not our place. And that's how you can tell, because if they don't read their Bible, of course, they're going to believe that, we don't have any type of place to judge. I'm not, calling these people out and saying that they're wrong for thinking that, because I was these people at one point. Before I got saved, I honestly thought that you weren't supposed to judge anybody, and that was God's place. And I think a lot of the things that we get mixed up is the fact that judging isn't condemning, but that is the connotation that society has put on the term judging. And we always think that we're not supposed to, even if it's something that is sinful, we're not supposed to speak out about it, or we're not supposed to call it out because it's judging. But it's like, that's not the case. What I think people get mixed up is discernment, judgment, and condemnation. And I think that people think that because you're using your discernment to call something out and you're using your judgment to say this is what it is, then you are condemning those people. And that is so not true. You read your Bible, obviously you know what's sinful, you know what's right and what's wrong, and there's nothing wrong with calling those things out. The problem comes in when we start to condemn people for their sin. And that's where that is not our place to do. And I think what people get mixed up about it all is the fact that Jesus in Matthew 7 says to not judge and you won't be judged. Or don't judge or you will be judged. Or, that whole thing. If you read further in that, you will see that Jesus also says that in the same way that you judge others, you will always also be judged, and in whatever way that you judge those people, it will be measured back to you. So you will be judged in the same way that you judge others. I don't think people are ready for that. I don't think people are ready to, basically calling out hypocrisy. That's what Matthew 7, that beginning of Matthew 7 is about. It's calling out the hypocrisy of people. Basically, if you aren't living up to a standard that you are judging people by, then you need to be careful, because you are also going to be judged in the same way that you judge others. And I don't think nobody want that, because it's clearly you're a hypocrite. You're a hypocrite, And a lot of people also, if they're not hypocrites, they're self-righteous. So they're judging people thinking that nothing's wrong with them. And baby, it's always something wrong. It's always something wrong with us, okay? We're not perfect, and we won't be perfect if we're in these bodies. So, this is where judgment is important, because later on in Matthew 7, Jesus also talks about knowing false prophets by their fruit. And I mean, that could be used for everybody. You will know people by their fruit. You will know whether they're a Christian. You will know whether they're a true Christian or whether they are a false prophet. You will know people by their fruit. Their fruit is basically their lifestyle, what they endorse, their behaviors, how they react and respond to things, what they do even behind closed doors, when nobody is watching, or when a big crowd is watching. You will be able to use your discernment and to judge based off of those things what these people actually are. Are they true believers, or are they just putting on a front for the public? And that's the thing. That's the difference. We have judgment and discernment, and we also have condemnation. And to use our discernment to say, okay, this is wrong. This is clearly against God's will and against what God desires. And this is a sin. I mean, we should all know what sins are, and this is right and this is wrong. We're able to discern that, and we can make a judgment call based off of our discernment. And usually with those two things, discernment and judgment, we're able to say, okay, this is your sin. This is your behavior. This is the fruit in your life. This is whatever is going on that does not align with God's will and does not align with God's character. And with that, we're able to make a judgment call and say, all right, to stay away from this, or, whatever it is. Condemnation, on the other hand, is saying you are wrong. You are going to hell. You do this sin, that sin, and you are going to hell. It doesn't give direction or any correction in guidance. It doesn't tell you, okay, well, you're doing this, or this is your sin, so let's get back on track, and this is the way that you're supposed to go, guiding them in the right way. That is what discernment and judgment should do with a lot of things, especially when we're calling people's sins out. Sometimes people are too far gone, and you just gotta pray for those people. You gotta pray for everybody, but you gotta pray for those people. But that's the difference between discernment, judgment, and condemnation. Real true judgment isn't condemning somebody. It's just saying, okay, this is what it is, and I can see that through my discernment. Condemnation is clearly putting these people in hell. Well, Jesus isn't saying for us to not call out what's right and what's wrong and what's sinful compared to what's pleasing to God. He's telling us to make sure that you're doing that, knowing that you're going to be measured by the same way that you are judging these people. You are going to be judged the same way that you are judging these people or judging whoever else. And where judgmental is wrong, and it's done in the wrong spirit, it's done with the wrong heart posture, is when it's done harshly. When you harshly judge somebody, or when you are judging them based off of just appearances and appearances only, just by what you think, what you see is that's it. Or is judging hypocritically. You're doing the same thing, but you're going to talk about these people judging, or judging self-righteously, thinking that nothing is wrong. I think I mentioned that, but thinking that nothing's wrong with you, and having pride in that, and then saying, well, these people are wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. That is when judgment becomes dangerous, and it becomes more, it has a bad connotation to it. It has a bad taste to it. And this is where we have to ask God to correct us and to convict us in our behaviors and in the way that we think, and even in our hearts, because it can come off hypocritical, it can come off self-righteous. And if we aren't convicted and humble within ourselves, and knowing that we are mere mortals, we are not God, we're not Jesus, then that's when we are able to judge and discern fairly, and to not put people in hell for the things that they're doing, in their flesh, and to give them not even just the benefit of the doubt, but to give them mercy and grace in what path they may be walking on. Calling out sin and speaking against sin is not judgmental. It's telling the truth, but the heart behind it in calling it out, it can be off-putting, and it can even sometimes be hypocritical. So we have to be aware of that. We need to be mindful and do self-reflection, and to see where, we may need healing and fixing and all of that stuff. Don't just always point the finger. It's like, work on ourselves, and then we can get the speck out of our friend's eye. And judgment is good. It's a good thing to judge. We are supposed to judge, but judging unrighteously or unfairly is where the problem becomes a problem. So that's it. That's all I want to talk about. What y'all think? Is it okay to judge people, or should we just leave that up to God? Let me know in the comments.